Let them eat cake, cried Marie Antoinette when faced with the problem of food shortages that were causing her people to starve. Well, contemporary historians don't actually attribute this quote to this famous French monarch, but the interpretation remains the same. For centuries, the sweet delicacy of cake has been reserved only for royals and the wealthy. While the lower and middle classes had their own versions of cakes, the ones containing sweet sugar and treats was only for those who could afford it. Today we are going to talk about the background of two of the most common types of cakes, as well as how cake is now a popular item in pop culture. Cake has become one of the most common household staples, whether it's found in the form of cake mix or from scratch. First, we will talk about the invention of the boxed cake mix. Next, about the history and style of wedding cakes, and lastly, about the phenomena of competitive baking on TV. While cake was once reserved for the wealthy and the royals, as we just mentioned, the invention of cake mix made it a treat that everyone could afford. In 1930, a patent was filed that used dehydrated flour, salt, sugar, cinnamon, molasses, baking soda, and powdered egg. This was the precursor to what we now know as cake mix. Culinary historian and author Laura Shapiro's book, Something from the Oven, Reinventing Dinner in 1950s America, claims that cake mix hinged on the surplus of molasses and flour that the United States had, not necessarily on the modern family's need for convenience. Susan Marks' 2005 book, Finding Betty Crocker, The Secret Life of America's First Lady, looked at the issue that cake mix had when it first came out. It was not as popular as they thought it would be, and a psychological study found that using pre-mixed and pre-measured cake mix made housewives feel that they were neglecting their families. John Duff, 20 years earlier, had come to the same conclusion and responded by tweaking his recipe to require the addition of fresh eggs. In his patent, he said, "The housewife and the purchasing public in general seem to prefer fresh eggs, and hence the use of dried or powdered eggs is somehow a handicap from a psychological standpoint." With this tweak, cake mix became even more popular and socially acceptable, working its way all the way into the White House. While the invention of boxed cake mix has a history that goes back almost a century, there is a type of cake with its own history that dates back almost 2,000 years. While we may picture wedding cake as a contemporary tradition, the tradition of serving cake at weddings goes back almost as far as the wedding tradition itself. In ancient Rome, newlywed couples would have cakes of honey, dried fruit, and barley broken over them to symbolize good luck. In the 1st century AD, when Rome conquered Britain, the British adopted this tradition and expounded on it. In Carol Wilson's article, Wedding Cakes, A Slice of History, for Gastronomica, the Journal of Critical Food Studies, she looks at early bridal pies, which at this time included meat, sweetbread, and spices. In the 17th century, the ancestor to the modern-day wedding cake was introduced. This cake was made up of 2 shortbread cakes with currants in between them and powdered sugar on top. During this time, white icing also became popular, and Simon Charlesy's 1988 book Folklore explains why. 1. White icing symbolized the purity of the bride on her wedding day, and 2. Refined sugar, which made the icing white, was very expensive, so icing became synonymous with status and wealth. In 1840, this icing took the name royal icing after being used on the wedding cake for Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. Cakes have also been associated with superstition that foretold the newlyweds' future as husband and wife. In medieval England, a stack of spice cakes were placed on top of each other, so very high. The newlywed couple attempted to kiss over the stack, and if they could, it represented their prosperity and fertility in their new life together. While wedding cakes have been around for 2 millennia, a new popular idea has recently taken off that makes cake a pop culture item. In recent years, reality television has become incredibly popular on TV, and competitive baking is no different. In recent years, a number of shows have come about called competitive baking, Next Great Baker, The Ultimate Cake Off, Cupcake Wars, The Great British Bake Off, and Food Network's Challenge. Depending on the shows, amateurs and professionals will compete for a variety of prizes, including cash prizes or prestigious positions at well-known bakeries. Jennifer Bartoli, graduate of the French Culinary Institute, has said that TV shows have helped modernize cake decorating industries by showcasing the talent and creativity of bakers around the world. Has also reinforced the idea that there is no one style of wedding cakes and given bakers the creative ability to do what they wish. So as you can see, we have looked at how cake mix has changed, how cake has been made in modern day American families, the history and style of wedding cakes for the past 2,000 years, and the novel idea of reality television and cake. Once upon a time, cake was only attainable for the rich. But today there are a number of options that make this sweet treat available for everyone. Thank you.